Everybody wants to be able to ride faster on the bike. That's the reality of cycling, whether you're new to it or you've been racing for years. But short of chasing tailwinds and only riding downhill, what are some other ways that you may not have considered in order to ride your bike that little bit faster?
In today's video, I'm breaking down 9 ways to ride your bike faster, designed specifically for beginner cyclists. This video is the first of 2 videos I'm making on how to cycle faster, with part 2 being focused on intermediate cyclists. So even if you aren't a beginner, but you do want to hear my thoughts on how to ride your bike faster, make sure to hit subscribe for part 2. And for the moment, let's get into this video. This is tip number 1. So tip number 1 is consistency. Consistency is the foundation of improving as a cyclist. And while this video is designed for beginners, this actually applies to all level of cyclists in general. The worst mistake you can make is assuming that one big ride per week will make you improve at the same rate as shorter but more consistent rides.
When you ride regularly, your body makes physical adaptations to the demands of the sport, building strength, fitness, and efficiency that you can't get just by jumping on the bike occasionally.
When starting out, I always recommend people aim to ride around 3 to 4 times per week to see steady progress, with a mix of easy rides and slightly more challenging efforts. Spacing out your rides allows your body to recover while still reinforcing key skills like pedaling smoothness, bike handling, and overall pacing of rides, while still ensuring plenty of recovery in between each ride. An example of a beginner cyclist week that I would recommend would be a 45 to 60 minute ride on Tuesdays and Thursdays, a 90-minute ride to 2-hour ride on Saturdays, and an easy 30 to 60 minute spin on Sundays. This kind of consistency will see a steady improvement of your fitness, which will lead to our ultimate goal of speed naturally.
The nice thing when you're a beginner is that learning curve is super steep, and this means that your rate of improvement is hugely noticeable.
This rapid improvement is often highly motivating, but it's important not to get carried away and to ride too much, as this can lead to burnout, overuse injuries, and a loss of motivation. The key is in finding a balance, gradually increasing your weekly riding volume without overwhelming your body. And then, as your fitness improves, you can further that improvement by throwing in some short bursts of effort on your Tuesday and Thursday rides, or some hills on Saturday to help keep that fitness growing.
When you first start out riding, the speed at which you can ride is limited almost entirely by your fitness. So by working on consistency, your fitness will come up naturally, your speed will come up naturally, and you can go from there.
Tip number 2, pedal on the downhills, not just the climbs. Now I'm not talking twisty, winding downhills here, but those shallow descents of -1 to -2% downhill, where many beginner cyclists ease off the pedals and let gravity do all the work. In theory, gravity can do all the work for us, but if you're looking to improve your average speed on a ride, pedaling on these slight downhills to counter the forces of aerodynamic drag is a must.
The speed difference between pedaling firmly on a slight descent and not pedaling at all can be 5, 10, or often even 15 kilometers per hour for a lot less effort than you'd have to do on the flat to get the same kind of speed gain.
By keeping the pressure on the pedals when you're going downhill, you're not only keeping your average speed higher, but you'll also ensure that you're actually keeping your fitness growing, as you're using your muscles for far more of the ride than if you sit there motionless. Of course, with this point, you don't want to be pedaling around corners and sprinting out of all of them just to keep your average speed high, but it's more just about maintaining momentum and overcoming unnecessary drag, rather than thinking that just because the road is tilting slightly downhill, that there's no point in putting in any work. This leads me to tip number 3. Get clipped in. Now, if you've made it to this point in the video, there is a good chance you're doing this already, but just in case you've jumped in halfway through the video and you want to know what point number 3 is, it is to use a pair of clip-in pedals like this, also known as clipless pedals. These are one of the biggest upgrades a beginner cyclist can make to ride faster and more efficiently. Unlike flat pedals that only allow you to push down, clip-in pedals connect your feet to the bike, enabling a smoother and more powerful pedal stroke. This means you're not just pushing down, but also able to pull back up, engaging more muscles, especially your hamstrings and glutes, resulting in better power transfer, a more balanced workload between both legs, and reduced energy loss.
Over time, this efficiency adds up, helping you to maintain a higher speed for less fatigue.
There are 2 main kinds of clipless pedals. There are these that are mountain bike pedals traditionally that allow you to clip in on both sides, and there are these which are road pedals which allow you to just clip in on one side. Traditionally, road pedals have been used on road bikes as they offer a little more width and stability, but for starting out, you might find the mountain bike style of pedals easier to manage, as the actual clip-in action is far more simple. On top of this, the shoes that you use with them allow you to walk around more easily due to the padding on the bottom. At first, clipping in and out can feel really daunting, but over time it becomes second nature. Once you get used to it, you'll really notice the difference in your pedaling efficiency and control, and as we're discussing in this video, your speed is going to come up naturally as a result too. So now we are on to tip number 4, and that is that comfort is key. Comfort on the bike is crucial for riding faster, because an efficient, pain-free position allows you to put out more power without wasting energy on discomfort or or poor posture. If your saddle is too high, you might rock your hips and lose power, too low and you'll struggle to generate force. Similarly, a reach that's too long or too short can cause unnecessary tension in your shoulders and arms, making it harder to stay in an aerodynamic and stable position. Getting a professional bike fit or making small adjustments yourself can make an immediate difference in both speed and endurance and help sort out potential injury-causing misalignments further down the track. Beyond positioning, your overall comfort on the bike can also be dictated by things like the clothing that you wear and your contact points as well, and this is all going to affect how fast you can ride.
A high-quality, well-padded pair of cycling shorts is going to prevent saddle sores and discomfort on longer rides, and a well-fitted jersey is going to cut down the amount of drag on your body as well.
If you're constantly shifting around trying to relieve discomfort, you're not fully focused on pedaling efficiently, and this lack of efficiency will of course lead to slower speeds and a less enjoyable experience of riding in general. By dialing in your fit and your overall comfort, you'll not only be able to ride for longer, but you'll enjoy the process more, which means that your fitness, your strength, and your ability to ride at a higher speed for longer will improve as a result too. Tip number 5. Focus on your cadence. Your cadence, or the number of times your pedals rotate per minute, plays a key role in cycling efficiency and speed. A lot of beginner cyclists push a big gear at a low cadence thinking it generates more power. It's true that it can generate more power, however this approach can lead to muscle fatigue and make it harder to sustain speed over time. Instead, maintaining a higher cadence, typically around 80 to 100 RPM, allows you to produce power more efficiently, relying more on your cardiovascular endurance rather than overloading your leg muscles. Spinning at a higher cadence also reduces strain on your knees and joints, helping you to ride longer without discomfort. A good way to improve your cadence is to use a bike computer with a cadence sensor or practice counting pedal strokes over 10 seconds and multiplying by 6. Over time, training your legs to spin smoothly and efficiently at higher cadences will help you maintain your power output with less fatigue, allowing you to ride faster and more comfortably. This leads me to point number 6, pacing. Pacing your rides correctly is essential for maintaining a high average speed without burning out too early. A lot of beginner cyclists make the mistake of starting out too fast, pushing hard at the beginning of a ride only to fade later.
The better approach is to distribute your effort evenly, riding at a pace that you can maintain throughout the entire ride.
If you use up all of your energy in the first 30 minutes, energy of which you only have a finite amount, there will be nothing left to push home with later. And while you might start out with a nice high average speed, it's only going to get worse from there. Another key aspect of pacing for maximum average speed is adjusting your effort based on terrain and wind conditions. Instead of trying to hold the same speed everywhere, focus on keeping a steady level of effort. On climbs, for example, it's better to keep a controlled effort the entire way up, rather than starting out with a bang and quickly dropping off from there. If you're riding into a headwind, pacing yourself conservatively will prevent early fatigue, allowing you to push harder when conditions improve. By pacing your rides wisely, you'll not only have a higher average speed, but also be able to finish your ride strong rather than struggling to hang on. This of course leads me to tip number 7, and that is fueling. Now fueling is one that people talk about all of the time, so we're going to keep it nice and simple. Imagine trying to drive a car with no fuel in it. Sure, you might be able to creep your way around for a little while slowly, but if you need to get anywhere quickly, there is no chance. That is literally what it is like trying to ride a bike fast without food. In any endurance sport, but in particular cycling in general, where you do need to put out high amounts of speed for long periods of time, carbs are king. You want to eat a little bit and often, aiming for anywhere between 60 and 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour. If you're doing high intensity intervals or trying to maintain the highest speed possible, more will always be better. The food you eat can be made up of anything from rice cakes to banana bread to energy gels like the ones I use from Fuel Plus. You can put sports drink in your bottles or make up your own energy drink using maltodextrin and sugar. Whatever you do, make sure to consume something other than just water, and it's important to remember 2 key things along the way.
Firstly, it takes time for your body to adapt to taking on that much fuel while cycling.
If you've got an event you're aiming for, don't assume you'll just be able to rock up on the day, eat 100 grams of carbs per hour while on the bike, and be going like a rocket. You need to practice fueling during your rides before you'll be completely adapted to it, and before the proper effects of large quantities of food will translate directly into additional speed.
And secondly, fueling is a before and after riding activity as well.
If you want to ride your next ride fast, you need to fuel properly before, during, and after your current ride. Recovering properly with the right nutrition will ensure proper adaptation to the riding you've been doing and guarantee you'll be able to push a higher average speed the next time round or go one better at the event that you've got coming up. Speaking of events, preparing for them, and riding faster, tip number 8 is to join a bunch ride. Now this point, my second last, is not just for beginners, it's for every cyclist out there, and that is that if you want to ride fast, there's no better way to do it than by relying relying on a few friends. Even in a small bunch of 3 to 4 riders that are packed closely together, drafting off one another and taking turns riding into the wind, you can easily average a far higher speed than if you're alone.
By sitting behind the rider in front of you, you can save anywhere from 25 to 50% of the energy you would need otherwise, depending on the size of the riders, speed, and also the terrain.
If you're in a bunch of a few riders each taking turns on the front, this will equal both higher average speeds for everyone, as well as less physical work done for each rider to achieve that speed.
As a quick tip, because I did make this mistake many times over as a beginner rider, if you are out on a bunch ride and you find yourself on the front riding into the wind with the group behind you, try not to just push the maximum amount of power that you can, trying to keep that speed super high. Focus on a controlled turn, keeping the pace firm but not crazy high, and making sure not to blow up the riders behind you, because you're going to blow up eventually as well, and then your average speed is going to drop off as a result.
Achieving a high average speed isn't just about putting out the maximum power you can for short bursts, it's about using your energy and your experience in an intelligent way to complete a course in the quickest time possible. Drafting off other riders and working well together will definitely help achieve this. And finally, tip number 9, test and track yourself. One of my favorite things to do is to ride the same course multiple times over in different ways to work out what the most efficient and high-speed tactic for completing it is. Sometimes a steady and more controlled effort throughout the entire ride will yield the best results, and for other courses, finishing climbs slightly harder and recovering during steep downhills pays off.
These results will vary depending on the type of ride you're doing, the terrain, and the wind direction and speed, but the more you keep track of what you're doing, the more you can work out what works.
By utilizing a few of the skills I've mentioned in this video, things like pacing, fueling, and comfort on the bike, you'll find your local rides get quicker and quicker, and then in time you'll want to learn what it takes to go really, really, really quick. Keen to see how to do this? Make sure to hit subscribe and watch this video up here, and I will see you guys all in the next one soon. Thanks guys, and happy riding. Adeo.